Wellington pressed his luck one last time against Lannes. Large armies on both sides. Actually, Lannes, this was a reinforcement by two French armies. There was a big hand in the French, had a lot of battle cards, and they managed to get their strength up high, use Lannes' 5 value as the die roll, and also managed to kill Wellington as the permanent loss. So that was a pretty major shift in terms of what's happening. But the insurrection is almost completely successful. There's still 2 areas held by French corps, so it's not going to succeed this turn. We'll see what happens, though, when the Austrians get 4 more units. They've got big old Schwarzenberg commanding. Beginning of the 1809 campaign phase. Schwarzenberg has raised up a humongous army. The English have thrown General Hill in place to help support that. And the French have raised what they can. Yeah, these guys have to go back to the reserves. Okay, but yeah, it's looking pretty bad for the French right now, at least in terms of the Austrian insurrection. And how far they can go beyond that is hard to tell. Ended the first battle round in 1809. The Austrian insurrection under Schwarzenberg, with Hill, I believe, with it, ended up charging into a reinforced Vienna and defeating, who is it? Davout. Lannes is now in charge after the retreat. Losses. We got Ney as the permanent loss for the French. And Bellegarde as the Austrian permanent. And these guys go up here. They'll be available later. Not a great result for the French. A lot of cards were played. Grand Battery again, combined arms, and the coalition played a calf charge. Top half of the second, the French came back. Davout charged back in and defeated the coalition army. Got losses, Mortier dead, and 2 of these Austrians go in the pile. And Ferdinand will send him up here. Hill is now in command of the army. Just because... Oh, no, he's not. Sorry. Schwarzenbergers. Just because I left him on top, but no. And that's not allowed. Okay, so that's what we got. And Davout's in charge. He was able to replenish his army back there. We're seeing tremendous attrition right now. And this can only favor the coalition as a whole, but the French aren't going to get anywhere until they subjugate Austria. For the third campaign round, the British played indecision, forcing the French to not do anything for the turn, or for the third. So we go to the fourth. On the fourth campaign turn, Davout makes another attack and strikes the Austrian army, and it is dissolved. And there's actually no Austrian replacements except what's sitting up here, which can't come in right away. So Hill is all that's left in Austria. It looks like the Austrian insurrection is about ready to be quelled. At the end of the winter campaign, Davout spread his army out a little bit, and Bagration moved in and grabbed a hunk of Austria. It's looking grim for the Austrians. 1810 insurrection phase. Alexander finally says he's had it and he will no longer be married to Joseph, or whatever that card was supposed to mean. British pulled an insurrection card, held it till the end of the last turn and played it here. It's going to mean the Russians are, well, they can't leave their country this turn, but it does create some real problems. They're either in the war against the French or the French have to invade them. If the French invade, there's a whole pile of Russian units that come into play. So, hard to see. There we go. 1810, after 2 rounds, everything's pretty much been happening in Austria. Napoleon came charging down with all his troops, and he's covered most of it. He did take an attrition loss on Messina, trying to enter the mountains chasing Hill. Now, Hill just received reinforcements, and it's beginning to look questionable whether or not Austria is going to fall. The French definitely have to do something interesting to do so. And that something interesting was in place. The French had a major campaign in hand. Another card got discarded, but essentially they moved a bunch of reinforcements into the area, including some Spaniards, and now they have enough troops. It's still questionable whether or not they can take it. Yet another French major campaign, the British passed again, and Napoleon is able to get a significant force to face Hill. He's still got a couple spaces open. It's going to mean a winter campaign in the mountains. Oh boy, that sounds dangerous, to get anything in place. Napoleon won the battle, destroying Picton and sending Hill up into the reserves, or surrender, or whatever it's called. He used a envelopment to do it, and he still has a card left, so he has a shot. Well, Napoleon definitely took a huge risk there. He went into the mountains in the winter on his own. I guess he could have sent Linné instead. That would have been wise. Let's switch to that, just because I would have done that had... I would have repaired that had I made the error anyhow. And I did the winter attrition. The Russians did not suffer from it, although they were set up for a 1/3 chance of it happening. So we're going to see Austria surrender and become a French dominion. So as promised, beginning of 1811, we see Russia joining the coalition, and we see Austria surrendering and becoming a French dominion. The other thing we see is that Prussia has just joined the coalition, and that's through play of the Talleyrand card. I really like that this card can be played either way, because historically, Talleyrand did some very odd stuff. In some ways, he was considered a great diplomat of Napoleon, but he also seemed to be playing his cards in a way that supported the eventual defeat of Napoleon. So it's a kind of clever little card. And eventually he did end up as Louis XVI's great diplomat as well. So I'm going to cut this one here and load it up.